Come this way. So the project, wait. So then we learn how to execute some logic compulsory when control come out from the try block. And then next we also understood when we throw exception or when we receive exception, we have two types of exception, checked exception and unchecked exception. Checked exception mandatory to handle, unchecked exceptions are optional to handle. Why checked exceptions are make it as mandatory to handle? Because those exceptions are throwing by programmer when resources are missing. The resources are available or not available should taken care by programmer at a development time. So by making that exception handling mandatory, compiler warning the developer, you must handle this exception. Okay, so you must handle this exception. When exception is handling time, he will verify background resources are there or not. At runtime, there is a chance maybe resources also missing. When resources are missing, what is the alternative logic execute also we have to display. Sometimes right, when you're accessing any app, you will get server side error come, contact administrator. Sometimes we'll get some unexpected error come, try again, right? So those problems are solved by end user or solved by the programmer background. Solved by programmer only background, right? So that means now background programmer to solve those exceptions are related to what? Resources exception. Those resources exceptions must be handled by programmer. If resource is really missing, what message to display to the end user, that also should handle. Okay, na? Right. So checked exceptions are representing resources missing. Unchecked exceptions are representing end user giving inputs. And number two, some maximum unchecked exceptions are end user giving mistakes and JVM internal problems mistakes only. Those are related to end user only. Why? So now I have a question. We have worked with so many exceptions. Arithmetic exception here, array index out of bounds, number format, class not found exception, null pointer exception. These all exceptions are given by Sun Microsystem. Means all these exceptions are defined by Sun Microsystem for our project or for Java project? For Java project, not for our project. So tell me, when we are developing our project also requires some input. Those inputs are not valid according to our business. Are you catching my point? When values are not valid according to our business, then who should throw exception? Programmer. Then which exception should throw? JVM, Sun Microsystem given exception. The exception name must contain our problem mistake. For example, division operator problems are representing by arithmetic exception. Array index problems are representing by array index out of bounds exception. Negative array size problem representing by negative array size exception. These are not related to our project. Sir, there is a one exception, sir, illegal argument exception. Yeah, illegal argument exception is representing only to specific to our project or common to all projects. Second problem, is it a checked exception or unchecked exception? Unchecked. It is a subclass of runtime exception. It is a unchecked exception. Unchecked exception handling optional or mandatory? Optional. If I don't handle unchecked exception at runtime, if I got problem, there is no solution to the problem. So that's why with the Sun Microsystem given exceptions, there are two problems. Some of the exceptions are unchecked, not mandatory to handle. I may miss that exception handling. Second problem is that exception class name is not referring the problem I am facing. So that's why we have to create our own exceptions. All people understand? So now we are trying to understand a concept called what? Custom exception. What a custom exception. So what is a custom exception? A exception class that is newly created by programmer is called what? Custom exception. Exception is a class that is created by whom now? Programmer. Then we call what? Custom or user defined. Do you know how to create a class? Yes or no? Oh, from childhood we are creating class. Class name, open bracket, closed bracket. That is a custom class. User defined class, but not user defined exception. And tell me, if I write class lion, is it an animal? If I write class lion, is it an animal? class tiger, is it animal? If I write class student, is it a person? If I write class bus, is it a vehicle? No. How can I make a class as a special type? By using inheritance. If you want to make your class tiger as an animal, you must make your class tiger extending from animal. If you want to make a class student as a person, you must make class student extends from person. Tell me, are you person? Are you a student? Are you a person? Where? In the classroom. In the classroom, you are a student. Once the class completed, go on to the main road. Are you a student? You are a person. That means by default, you are a person. A special type of person called what? Student. I am a person. A special type of person called what? Faculty. Lion is a animal. A special animal called what? Wild animal. Tiger, wild animal. Rat, pet animal. Anybody brought, growing rats? Rat business also there. Oh, okay. Rat to cat to, okay, rabbit. All these are what? Pet animals. Okay. So finally, what the point I'm telling? If I create a class A, is that class A is a exception class? No. It is just a class. And it is extending from which class? Object. That means it is what type of class? Object class. It's a plain class, normal class. But I want class A should have a special functionality. What the special functionality? Exception functionality. This class name should use with throws. This class object should throw by using throw keyword. This class name I should use with what? Catch. If you want to use your class A as an exception class, you must derive from throwable. Yeah. Who is the superclass of all exceptions? Throwable. Now listen carefully. So hope you understand first point, what is an exception. An exception is a class created newly by programmer deriving from throwable or one of its subclasses. When compiler considers some class is a exception class, if it is deriving from throwable or one of its subclasses, because subclasses also exception classes only, na? What are the subclasses we have? Error, and we have what? Exception, and we have what? Runtime exception. Tell me, remaining classes like error direct subclasses, runtime direct subclasses, exception direct subclasses, they are representing one runtime error, na? So creating our class, subclassing from those classes is a good idea, bad idea? Bad idea. So we have to take only these classes. Is the matter. Now I want to create my class called what? A. Now I am creating class A as a subclass of throwable. Also I can make my class as a subclass of error. Also I can make my class A as a subclass of runtime exception. Also I can make a class A as a subclass of. Now we have 4 options. I want to create my own custom exception, then create a new class deriving from throwable or one of its subclasses: error, runtime exception, exception. Okay, now we have 4 options. Which option is best? You decide. Which option best? Which option you want to choose? Subclass of throwable, subclass of error, subclass of runtime exception, subclass of exception. Okay, let us pick one option and take the decision. Ready? Now I am making my class deriving from throwable. Then this class is become sibling to the error and exception. You are creating one more separate hierarchy of exceptions. Sun Microsystem told use either error hierarchy or exception hierarchy, and use catch of exception as a backup catch block. 99.99% we will write catch of exception as a backup catch block. Tell me, if you create your class A as a subclass of throwable, can catch of exception catch your exception? No. Then now the user class program, there is a chance to fail abnormally because of your A is not subclass of exception. So tell me, now the choice of choosing class A as a subclass of throwable is a bad choice. There is no compile time error. There is no runtime error. You can create your class as a subclass of throwable. No problem. But what is the problem? If you create a class A as a subclass of throwable, it will become sibling to exception. Catch of exception cannot catch. And second problem, you are creating one more hierarchy of exceptions which are not known to other developer. Okay, so as per standards, only there should be two hierarchy of exception: error hierarchy coming from JVM, exception hierarchy coming from API. API means our program. So then it is a wrong choice creating our class as subclass of throwable. Now the next choice, choose class A subclassing from error. Tell me, error representing what type of exceptions? Unchecked. Okay, exceptions coming from where? JVM. If you create your class A deriving from the error, you are giving misunderstanding to the other programmer. What? This exception is meant for handling the runtime errors coming from JVM. Hey, are you creating JVM software? Are you creating your programs as extension to JVM software? No. So writing this class is deriving from error is again what? Bad choice, because we are not handling the errors coming from JVM. Following my point? So it is not good idea choosing the class as a subclass of throwable, because it becomes sibling to the exception. Catch of exception cannot catch, and you are creating one more separate hierarchy of classes. Number one. Number two, creating class deriving from error is also bad choice, because you are not handling the runtime errors coming from JVM. Error representing the runtime errors coming from the JVM level. So we are not writing exceptions to handle the problems at JVM level. Then what the remaining two options? Runtime exception or exception. Tell me, exception, runtime exception are representing the problems coming from API. Runtime errors coming from API. API means what? Program. Program level problems are representing by runtime and exception. So choosing the class deriving from runtime exception or exception is good choice. But which one is the better choice? Runtime exception or exception? Okay, let us decide. If you create my class deriving from runtime exception, this exception become what type of exception? Unchecked. Mandatory to handle or optional to handle? If I forgot to handle, I'm not informing to other programmer, then other programmer will not try try catch and program terminated abnormal. Okay, as a sincere person, I reported. Then user programmer when call my method, he didn't try catch. If you don't try catch, at runtime that exception will come. Program terminated abnormally. Then all the previous results generated will be lost or none. If you want to make sure your exception should be handled everywhere by reporting or by catching, you should create your exception as what? Checked exception. So if you want a smooth termination of your program, you should choose your class as a subclass of what? Exception. 99% of the custom exceptions are created as a subclass of exception to make our exception as checked exceptions to handle mandatorily. Only 1% of exceptions we create as a subclass of runtime exception. All people understand that one time also very, very rare. Very, very rare. So if you want to make your exception handling is optional, then we create our class as a subclass. If you want to make your exception as your exception handling is optional, why are you writing your own class? Why don't you use the predefined class called illegal argument exception? Maximum your exceptions are representing argument problems only, na? You are taking inputs into your program as argument only. The argument problems to represent, I have already one exception called illegal argument exception. Instead of choosing your own class, better choose what? Illegal argument exception. Problem solved. Do you all understand my point? So in a company, in projects, when you create exception, that exception we create generally as what? Subclassing from exception to make our class as a checked exception and mandatory to handle everywhere. Up to now, everyone understand? So finally tell me, what is a custom exception? What the purpose of the custom exception? How can we create custom exception? What is the recommended approach of creating custom exception? Why it is recommended? 5 points. Okay, ready? What is a custom exception? An exception that is an exception class that is newly created by a new class created by programmer deriving from throwable or one of its subclasses is called what? Custom exception or user defined exception. Number 2, why custom or user defined exception I should create when Sun Microsystem given so many exception classes already? All exception classes given by Sun Microsystem meant for handling the runtime errors coming from either JVM or from the Java API, but not for our project specific problems. To handle our project specific problems, we should create our own exception classes so that it will be more meaningful to our program. Next, second problem, Sun Microsystem given exception classes are unchecked exceptions, and some of the exceptions are checked exception, but they are representing the particular problem in the JVM API level. So I have one common exception called illegal argument exception, which is handling argument problem, but it is unchecked exception, optional to handle. To overcome these two problems, we have to create our own exception class. Point number 3, how to create our own custom exception? We must create class deriving from throwable or error or exception or runtime exception class. Then only our class will be considered as exception type class. I can throw, I can report, I can catch. Point number 3, what is the best choice to choose as a subclass? Okay, if you write a class deriving from, okay, the best choice is creating our class deriving from exception class. What the reason behind choosing exception as a subclass, superclass of your class? If I write my class deriving from throwable, it is creating separate hierarchy. Catch of exception will not catch. Generally in the project, other programmer will catch all exception by using catch of exception. So your class is not subclass of exception, then it will not catch. Program terminated abnormally. Problem number 2, point number 2. We don't create our class as a deriving from error type, error class, because error representing the runtime errors coming from JVM level, our exception not representing or handling runtime errors. So it's a wrong choice choosing error, deriving your class from error. Next, we can write our class deriving from runtime exception, also deriving from exception. If we derive our class from runtime exception, our program will be, our exception become unchecked exception, optional to handle. If you derive our class, from exception, it becomes checked exception, mandatory to handle. I can guarantee program terminated normally by executing alternative logic or by displaying error messages properly to the end user. So in project, 99% we will choose the exception as what? Deriving our class deriving from what? Exception. Is it clear? If you want to create our own class deriving from runtime exception, instead of creating our own class, we can choose what? Illegal argument exception by passing proper error message. So in project, every time we will create our class as a checked exception class deriving from exception. All you guys understand? Shall I ask one wrong thought process created in market? Let's see how can you answer. There is a one statement running in the market in IT industry in Java field, not only Ameripet, in websites also. Every custom exception is by default checked exception. True, false? By default, every custom exception is a checked exception. True or false? False. It is your decision. Na? JVM not creating checked custom exception. You are creating custom exception. If you derive from exception, it will become checked exception. If you derive from runtime exception, it will become unchecked exception. How you are creating, the type will be attached. So generally in the projects, we create our class deriving from exception. That's why it become what? Checked exception. Is it by default or you creating? Hey, is it by default or we creating? We creating, not by default. If anybody asks, by default, every custom exception is a checked exception. What do you choose? False. It's our decision, how you are creating. So custom exception, how to create, why you create, how to use. Got clarity? Yeah? Shall we write a program now? class A. First, I wanted to explain with A, and is the right design or wrong design? I will explain later. Okay, class A. Now tell me, is this class A is executable class? No. Save it. Save it. Tell me, I am creating a class called what? Example. Inside class example, I am taking static void M1. Inside M1 method, I am writing throw new A. Exceptions are meant for what? Creating object and throwing with the help of throw keyword only, na? New tester. Why? Sleeping. Are you sleeping? No? Okay. It is in separate Java file. Sorry, if you confuse, I am taking this also as separate class. Okay. Totally how many classes now? How many Java files? 3 Java files. And now look at that. Test class want to use example class. Example class want to throw exception. Which exception? Custom exception. What is the custom exception? A. New A. Everyone answer. Is this line compiled or not? Why? You have created a class A as a object type class, extending from object. Control 1. Incompatible types. A cannot be converted to throwable. Now tell me, can I write class A extends from A the type just as I said. If I type example, you say example. If I write sample, you write sample. You don't have your own answer. You must guide me what I should write. Okay? You should not follow me. Throwable. Any compile time error? No. Now the A is of what type? Throwable. Now here any compile time error? Any compile time error, girls? Yes, sir. Previous error compile time error is solved. Now the new compile time error will come. Now the class A is what type of exception now? You are deriving from throwable. It become what? Checked exception. Unreported exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. Because A is a checked exception. You must handle. Now how to handle? By using throws. Throws A. Allowed? Yes. Now go to test class. In a test class, I am writing try. Okay. In test class, I am writing example.m. Is it compiled or not? No. Because M1 method is reporting A. A is what type? Checked exception. So I must handle. Unreported exception A must be caught or declared to be thrown. We have learnt all these points by using class not found exception, interrupted exception, which are given by Sun Microsystem. Now we are working with our own exception. Solve this problem by writing try catch or by using throws keyword. But I want to handle by using try catch. Class A. Control 1, compile. And then here I am writing A dot. Sorry, earlier you taken E, but now you're taking A. Yeah, that is what? Exception E. This is what? A. Variable name can be anything. Stack trace. Control 1, compile. Thrown, reported, catch, display. What are you getting? A. Sir, only A coming what, sir? Where is java.lang. Class not found exception, java.lang. Arithmetic exception. Here I'm getting only A. Where is the java.lang? Hey, all the classes are defined in the package. In java.lang, predefined package. Did you create your class in any package? No. So that's why only class name, colon. Have you passed any message? No. That's why no message. Where it has thrown M1 method and propagated to whom? Main method. Caught by whom? You yourself. Okay? manually catching na, manual catching and display. So समझ में आया how to create exception and how to throw, how to report, how to catch, how to display. Everyone understood? In a project generally we don't catch exceptions for just stopping abnormal termination. We will use what? Exception as a parameter. I am taking exception as a parameter. Exception E. Now tell me, is this program compiled or not compiled? Generally will take catch of exception as a backup catch block. And tell me, is it compiled or not compiled? Not compiled, because M1 में the reporting exception is A. Catching by using exception. Matched or not matched? Not matched. So compiler throw exception is not handled. Cannot find symbol. Okay. Now let me change it A to E. And now look at that. Whatever you are getting now, unreported exception A must be caught or declared to be thrown. Adente I'm catching by using catch of exception. But this catch of exception match with this exception? No, because now A become sibling to exception because of exception throwable. Hope you all understand? So it is not recommended to write extends from throwable because of it will become what? Sibling to the exception cannot catch. Okay, then next option is what? Error. If you write error, is it mandatory to handle or optional to handle? Optional to handle. Control 1, compile successfully. Is it mandatory to catch or optional to catch? Optional to catch. Compile, executed. We will get exception. Exception in thread main. Which exception coming? A. Now who caught this exception? Main method or JVM? JVM. When JVM catch exception, it will display what? Thread name. Okay. Now it is optional to catch, but there is a problem. What is the problem? I'm misguiding, wrong information I'm giving. This class A is not handling runtime errors coming from JVM. So that's why error is not good idea. The next, I'm taking what? Runtime exception. If I take runtime exception, now it will be valid. But what is the problem? It become unchecked. Unchecked exception, mandatory handle, optional to handle, optional handle. Then when I run this program, mandatory catch, optional to catch, optional to catch. When it is optional to catch, when exception rise, do I have any alternative logic to execute? No. The previously entered all values will be lost. And finally we'll get what? Wrong results. Exception in thread main A. So runtime exception is not also good idea. I must take what? Exception. Any problem? No problem. Then can I compile it? No. Unreported exception A must be caught or declared to be thrown. So I should write what? Throws A. Why? A become what now? Checked exception. Then can I call and ignore catching? No. Compiler will throw error. I should catch here. Now I can catch in two ways. By using A, compile successfully and executed. Hello? Can I use also exception now? Yes or no? Why? It is a subtype of exception. Catch block can catch and display it. So hope you understand how to create custom exception, how to throw, how to report, how to catch. Any new point did you learn? No. You have learned only writing your own new class instead of Sun Microsystem given class. Remaining procedure is what? Same. So tell me, sir, exception is meant for storing any data? No. Is exception meant for performing any business logic operations? No. That means inside exception class, do I need to create any variables? No. In exception class, do I need to define any methods? No. Variables meant for store data, methods meant for performing operations. Now my question, then what is the purpose of exception class? Exception class is meant for only create object, throw it by using throw keyword. That's it. Not more than that. Yes or no? That means, can I create exception class as an empty class? Yes. Hey, if you create as an empty class, how can I create object? If you want to create an object, constructor required or not? Tell me. Inside this class, by default, we have default constructor. Okay. By using the default constructor, I create object. All people are active. Now, if I create an exception object by using no param constructor, why this exception is coming? Is there any information to me? Is there any information to me? So tell me, exception object must create sometimes by without error message, sometimes with error message. So as a example class developer, when I am throwing exception, it is my responsibility to pass error message just for fun. Again, I am throwing this exception for fun. That message should come on to the console. Array, if you pass this message here, that is going to the constructor or not? Is the constructor available in this class? Then compiler throw error. Which chapter? Exception handling chapter, constructor chapter. Exception handling over. Okay, now we are understanding the class design. As a exception class, what information I should have? Do I need to store any values? No. Static, non-static variables are not required. Second, do I need to perform any operations? No. Static, non-static methods are not required. Then what the purpose of this exception class? Only for creating object. So to create object, what we required? Constructors. Sir, constructor not creating object na? Hey, constructor doesn't create object, but it should give information to the new keyword to create object. To help the new keyword to create object, I required constructor. Further, to initialize this object, I required constructor. Constructor is meant for giving information to new keyword and further to initialize. So in this class, I need a constructor. By default, which constructor is available? No param constructor. Because of no param constructor, I can create object, but exception object cannot carry error message. So if you want to create exception object by storing error message, I should define constructor in this class. Now compiler will throw error. So in this class, I must define what? Which constructor? Do you know how to create constructors? So whatever the message is coming here, that message is now passed to the constructor. Any compile time error? No. Tell me, when you run this program, e.print stack trace method is displaying number 1, exception class name. Number 2, error message. Number 3, the place where exception rise. Yes or no? The just for fun, the message will come on to the console or not? Come on. Just for fun, message will come on to the console or not? Okay, sleeping fellows. Deep sleeping fellows. That's what the problem with you. You never follow the flow of execution. Always you assume whatever you want like a compiler. Behave like a JVM. We don't behave like a compiler. Tell me, when you call the M1 method, control come to M1 method. In M1 method, we have created exception object by using constructor. If I pass message to the constructor, is it stored automatically in the object? Voila. E.print stack trace method reading the message from constructor, reading message from e pointing object. E pointing object and new keyword created memory or not? Inside constructor, the argument did you store inside class A? Then how the messages will be available to the e dot? Is my question understand or not? You have created what constructor here? Empty constructor. You take an error message. Inside error message, just for fun message came. After constructor execution completed, the message is gone. Hello? Is that message stored in your A class object? No. Then how? E.print stack trace. E means what? Object. How from the object print stack trace method can read? Cannot read. So what is the wrong point I have done here? The error message I have not stored inside object. How can we store error message in the object? In the previous chapter, in the constructor chapter, if you want to store messages or data inside object, I told you create a non-static variable inside the class and assign parameter to non-static variable. Remember? Tell me. Here, I should create what? One string variable. String error message. Gurtunda. This is not exception handling chapter. This is what? Non-static member chapter, constructor chapter. Now what I write here? Error message equal to error message. Right? This error message is parameter. This error message is class level variable. Yes or no? Control 1, compile. Control 2, message coming or not coming? Why? The error message coming as an argument reading and storing in The same parameter. So what I should write here? This dot. Okay. Everyone understand that? Now tell me, will you get error message now? The past error message is stored inside a object. That a object is created, thrown. Now tell me, this a object contain error message? Yes. That that a object is thrown to construct, main method. Then from here control go to e. E variable pointing to a object only, na? Print stack trace method, if you call, that error message is displayed or not displayed? Why not displayed? Print stack trace method is executing from which class? A class? No. Exception class? No. Throwable class. Then print stack trace method, when it is executed from throwable class, print stack trace method reading error message. Error message it is reading from A class, reading from throwable class. In a throwable class, error message is filled with error message? No. You are storing error message in which class? A class. Then print stack trace method must execute from which class? A class. Is it executing from A class? No. Executing from throwable. Then error message will come or will not come? Will not come. So once again you develop wrong design. You take an error message. First initially not stored. Second time you stored, but where you stored? In your class memory. If you store in your class memory, how throwable class can read your data? Superclass cannot store subclass data, na? Subclass can read superclass data. Superclass cannot store subclass data. Then now tell me, what is the solution to this problem? If you want print stack trace method read the data, I have to store in my class, I should pass to superclass. I should not store in my class. I must pass to superclass. This place, what keyword I should use? Super. If I write super dot error message, compiler software will ask nearer, come nearer, come nearer. Being an object-oriented programmer, how dare you to access the properties of a class? You must access properties of class, constructor of the class. Constructor and method you have to class, because the property ERR message is created as what? Private. Private property can you read? No. You must pass this message to whom now? Constructor of superclass. Gurtunda? Did you understand this syntax? What is this? This is a constructor chaining, na? Right? Take the error message from the object creation programmer and pass to what? Super keyword. Then super keyword giving error message to whom now? Exception class. Exception class constructor internally also contain what? Super of error message, and it is passing to super class throwable. Throwable will store error message in error message variable. Abhi dekho, control 1 compile, control 2. You got error message just for fun? So tell me, what is the right design or steps to develop a custom exception class? Step number 1, create a class deriving from exception class. Step number 2, do I require to define any variables? No. Do I need to declare any methods? No. I should define constructor. How many constructors? 2 constructors. If I define only string parameter constructor, sometimes I want to create object without any error message. Then program compile or not compile? Not compile. So how many constructors I must have? 2 constructors. What are the 2 constructors? A of no param constructor. Inside no param constructor, which constructor I have to call? Example class no param constructor. So I should write what? Super of. Tell me, is the super of mandatory or optional? Optional. If you don't write, who will write? Compiler. And rule number 3, or step number 3, inside string parameter constructor, pass that parameter error message to super class constructor. If you develop these 3 steps, then your custom exception is ready to use in your project. Everyone understand? So tell me once again, or totally 6 points we have understood. Step number 1, what is the, point number 1, what is a custom exception? An exception that is a exception class that is newly created by programmer deriving from throwable or one of its subclasses is called what? Exception class. How can we create exception? Why exception we create? We are creating our own custom exception for throwing exception specific to our project. All Sun Micro system given exceptions are either for handling runtime errors coming from JVM or from Java API. For handling runtime errors coming because of wrong inputs given to our project, specific to our project, we have to create our own exceptions. Then how can we create exception? We must create a class deriving from throwable or it's a subclasses. What the right design to implement? Throwable wrong idea, error wrong idea. Runtime exception okay, but still it is also wrong idea. You must develop exception class deriving from exception so that it is mandatory to handle the program project terminated normally. Next point. By default, every custom exception is checked exception. It is false. If you create it is checked. If you don't create it is unchecked. The next, what are the steps we have to follow to create checked exception? 2-3 steps. Step number 1, create a class deriving from exception to make your classes checked exception and handle everywhere. Number 2, define minimum 2 constructor, no param constructor and string parameter constructor to take error message. Step number 3, in string parameter constructor, pass this error message to the super class constructor by using super call. Then next, use this exception class in your business logic to throw exception and report exception by using throw and throws, and in user class to catch the exception by using try catch. Hope you all understand now. Really, custom exception development got clarity? Yeah? Any questions? It means you want to develop exception chaining. Yes. To develop exception chaining, you should have one more constructor with what parameter? Throwable. Throwable, na? Or you want to? Why you want? That message is the custom exception. Check cause of the exception. That requirement will not be there. If you want that requirement, you should define one more constructor with string message, throwable cause, and here you have to pass this cause also to the super class to store in the cause variable. Okay. So this is what exception for chaining exceptions. Generally, we don't chain our exceptions because we are writing this code for exception, generalized exception or specific runtime error. Specific runtime error we want to handle. So we don't write actually. According to your requirement, if you want to both, what do you write? 2 parameter constructors. For first parameter, string, error message, comma, throwable cause. And how to pass these 2 information to the superclass? You tell me, it's not possible. Error message, comma, cause. There is no constructor to take 2 arguments. Are tumri fellow, how can I say it? Sun Micro system defined like that. Show me here. Go and see. You know, right? Where it is there? There is 2 parameter constructor there. Show me how. Come here. Come here. Show me. How did you see? Show me. Two parameters there. What is the parameter? There's a private or public or protected. If you have 2 constructors, then you can pass. That's what I'm saying. Okay, if it is the 1 parameter, 1 super. If 2 parameters are there, 2. Okay, generally we don't use this constructor, because the cause will become as what? Error message. If you want to pass explicit message, you can also use this constructor. If you want to call from your program, there is also third parameter is also there. What is that? Boolean enable suppression Boolean writable trace. So what is this? This is a API documentation. Yesterday class I shown you, remember? I mean, in somewhere else, string handling chapter, if you watch the videos, there I shown you API documentation, right? So if you wanted to see how many constructors are there in the predefined class, I have two options. One is source code, another is what? API documentation. So maximum we will develop how many constructors in our user class? Two constructors. What purpose? Our class is not meant for handling what exception chaining. Are you catching my point? Our code, we are not writing our program to handle exception chaining. If you want to handle exception chaining, then you have to define what? Throwable parameter constructor. And now, if your class is supporting two parameter constructor, then you can call the two parameter constructor, define two parameter constructor and call it accordingly. But this is never we do in our regular coding. So if you want exception chaining, we will use either exception class or runtime exception class. You are writing your class for specific to one particular runtime error. Everyone understand that? Right. So now let's see program compiled or not. Yes. Why it is compiling? Because in super class we have string comma throwable parameter constructor. Clear my point? Right. So when you verify, why you are questioning me? No, my question is, you wanted to test me whether I know or don't know? Yeah, because I checked only 3 constructors. Okay. I don't want to worry about other constructor. From which version they are available? 1.4. Before version, not there. I didn't verify 1.4 version onwards because I'm not required. They catching my point. I never verified this one earlier. I have verified only up to here. My knowledge, I want to work with only up to these constructors. So I have verified. Okay. When you see this constructor, you should say, sir, there is one more constructor, parameter constructor. No need to test my knowledge. You know na, don't know na. Huh? Okay. Good. Yeah, good work you have done. So when you learn something new, no need to test me. Okay. You can directly tell. That's what I'm saying, Bhaiya. So the way you have to share the knowledge to me should be directly. Sir, there is a 2 parameter constructor is also there. How can I call that constructor? So then I will teach. Oh, really there? I will verify. Okay, na? That means what you are questioning me. You are doubting me. Okay, na? You already verified everything you did. And now you want to come to the class to know, Harikrishna, know this point or don't know. Na? Okay, good. So that is what I am expecting from you students. Why I am enjoying your batch? Because you are questioning me. You are doubting me. You wanted to prove that I don't know some point. Okay, na? That is giving the more knowledge to you. And at the same time, you are coming to class and questioning me. That knowledge is improving to me also. Are you catching my point? So I want this kind of students always. If you are not working, when I was working in my Java time, I always wanted to prove my faculty don't know something. I want always prove that my faculty teaching wrong. Okay. In that process, I am doing lot of analyzation. This way going what, that way going what, where is the predefined class, where it is available, source code, JDK software, internal memory diagrams. Lot I have analyzed, and finally my knowledge is grown. So what is your target now? You have to prove I am wrong. You have to prove that I don't know something. Okay. That's what he is doing. That's why I'm enjoying your class. Actually, today I should cancel your class also. Okay, now then suddenly I change your time to take the class because I don't want to miss. Okay, so that's interest you should create in me. That's why in every batch I'm telling, Array, do such more. I gave some knowledge. With that knowledge, you learn more. If I am only working one brain, if these many brains are working, 500 points will come. But you people are doing what? As you don't have time to work the points I am giving itself. Then where is the more points you work? Next, I want to see whether you have the confidence to show where the points are available. Can he come here or not? Okay, I can search where it is there. Okay, now I can open this browser and I can type. Just I want to see his confidence level. In front of these students, he will come and work or not. And now he will get his job in a first interview itself. He's having the confidence of working in front of the people. Once he got the job, in company also, You don't get team lead, team manager. But respect rate. Okay, na? You should approach to your team lead, team manager as if you don't know. Understand? Na? Today, how you are approaching. Yesterday, how you are approaching. This way, if you approach to your team lead, team manager in the company, you will get lot of problems. Okay, so people feel that you have head weight. Okay, you're arrogant. So you are not really arrogant. Okay, so you have some points. You are in excitement. You wanted to share that point, but company people are very mean-minded people. Not like me. I will not accept. So they will started taking as you are a heavyweight, and they want to take revenge on you. Be careful. Okay, especially in South India companies, if you do like this, madre. Okay. Right. So hope you all understand, guys. So how many constructors are there in super class? 4 constructors. From which version these constructors are available? How can we find? How can we find how many constructors are available in my class? Open browser and type what? Java dot, which it's not required directly. Exception class. What you wanted to find? Constructors. What do you write? Exception class constructors. Constructors, which version? Plus Java 19. Latest version, maybe some more constructors are added. Open this. Showing Java 7. Okay, open this. And here 7 place you write 19. Okay, now this is 19 version. And now go to here. Here search for exception class. Exception class is open. This is which version exception? 19 version. Now scroll down. You'll find how many constructors? Exception no param, exception string param, exception string comma, throwable, exception string comma, throwable comma, boolean, and then exception throwable class. Totally 4 constructors are there. Can you call this constructor from your program? Yes, sir. Protected, na? Can you create exception class object by using this constructor? No. Can I call it by using super keyword? Yes. Then now we have no param, string param, and string comma throwable. You want error message come, cause of the exception, both you want to include. You can use this exception. So finally, what the point I want to tell, generally these exceptions, this string comma throwable, it is meant for storing cause of the exception. In our project, generally we don't go for exception chaining. We'll do only what? Exception runtime error representing. Got clarity? Yeah? Right. So now I have a question. Try to answer. The name I am choosing here as what? A. Is it meaningful or meaningless? Meaningless. Now you take all exception classes. All these exception classes are what? Meaningful. When I read it, attach not support exception. Acha. When I'm developing some attaching, I'm developing what do you call web applications, file upload, file download, email attaches will be there. Na? Acha, when attaching problem, this exception will come. Already bound exception. Oh, there is a concept called binding, unbinding. If already bound, again you cannot bind. Okay, agent load. Oh, it's some agents it is using loading. It's a problem. Then agent loading. So observe here carefully. If you observe, there is a point. Every exception class has some parts. Observe carefully here. It has 2 parts. Number 1, the runtime error ends with what? Super class name. Okay, na? Runtime error. What error you are handling? That runtime error and super class. Click on throwable. Then come here. Under throwable, we have only 2 subclasses. What are the 2 subclasses? Where is this? Only 2 subclasses, error and exception. Click on error. All error subclasses are, look at these many error subclasses are there. All the error subclasses are ends with what? Error, 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 error. So by seeing the exception ends with error, I can realize, oh, this problem coming from JVM. Okay, if I see an exception ends with exception, I can see, oh, this problem is coming from program level. So I should handle and catch this exception to take alternative code execution. Every exception class ends with what? Exception, super class name, following before that preceded by what? The runtime error. So what is the good naming convention to choose the exception class name? The good convention is, first what you write, runtime error, what you wanted to handle, plus following by the super class name. Catch my point? This is the right approach of defining custom exception. For example, I want to handle negative numbers. Then what is the runtime error name I should write? Negative number. It should be subclass of whom? Error or exception? Exception. So what do you write? Exception. Negative number exception. Then I have to take constructor name is negative number exception, and constructor name negative number exception, and negative number exception, and negative number exception. Tell me, is a negative number exception wanted to handle other exceptions? If you want, you define with these exceptions. Otherwise, ignore it. Clear my point? Hope you all understood now? So this is the way you have to create our own exception class. And then how to use this exception class? Inside this class, I'm defining one method M1. I'm taking the parameter what? A. Now I have to write if condition. If A less than 0. Okay, A less than 0. Then I should throw what? Negative number exception. Tell me, negative number exception, you want to give any error message? Yes. Then you write here double quotes, don't pass negative number. And now here I should handle which exception? Negative. Up to now we are working with predefined classes. Now we are working with what? Our own class. And here what I should write? Down say system.out.println double quotes, the number A is stored accepted as some dummy message. Cannot find symbol, negative number exception. Compile, control 1, compile. Okay, na? And then here what I should do when I call the M1 method by passing some number. This program is going to this method and is reporting what? Negative number exception. What I should write here? Exception or negative number exception? And E dot print stack trace. Control 1. Will you get exception or no exception? The number 10 is stored. Now I'm passing minus 10. Now you'll get what? Minus 10 go to M1 method. M1 method checking A value 0, less than 0, true. Then create negative number exception. Control is going from here to which class? Negative number exception constructor. Which constructor? This one. Passing error message to super class exception. Super class exception internally contain what? Super of again message. It is going to throwable. Throwable class contain what logic? This dot. Message equal to message, and message storage super class, throwable class, message variable. Control come back, and exception object is construction completed. Throw coming to main method. Main method exception object stored in E dot print stack trace. Print stack trace method searching inside which class? Negative number exception, not available. JVM searching for print stack trace method in negative number exception, not available. Exception class, not available. Throwable class, available. What is its internal logic? Display complete information about the exception. So it is displaying what? Exception class name. What the exception class name? Negative number exception, colon. Message of this exception. Where is the message is available in? Message variable. From the message variable, reading the message, don't pass negative number and display complete error message on the console. Negative number exception, don't pass negative number. Hope you all understand, Anna? Right? So this is the way you have to work. Sir, end user don't want this all the nonsense. Only error message you want. Then what the code I should write? System.out.println of. What do you write? E. If you write E, what it will display? Exception class name and error message. I don't want exception class name. I want only error message. So what I should do? I should write what? E dot get message. Get message method reading the message from where? Message variable available in the throwable class. Already message is available. Only message is displayed. Don't pass negative numbers. Samajh mein aaya? Everyone understand? Right. So tell me, always I am passing -10 here. It's a hard coded. So I want read data from the keyboard. SSCN dot next in. Now I'm writing here system dot out dot print of double quotes. What did I write? Enter number. Enter number. I have to create what? Scanner object. SSCN equal to new scanner of. What do you write? System dot in and import Java dot util dot scanner. Control 1, compile. Control. Enter number asking 10. The number is 10 stored. Control 2. Again execute. -10. Don't pass negative number. So better. Let us display as what? Double quotes like JVM displaying capital error coming up. Enter number -10. Don't pass negative number. Hope you all understand this code. Really? Custom exception, how to develop, how to use in the project. Tell me. How many custom exceptions I can create as part of my project? No, come on. As many runtime errors you want to handle, those many. For example, I don't want, take the numbers between 1 to 10. 1 to 10 range, I don't want. I want to take another range. So then I have to create one more exception. Come on, help me to write the exception class. Class number range exception. What you want to handle? Range, number range you want to handle. Number range exception. Tell me here, how many constructor? Do you require main method? No. What are the steps to create custom exception? Derive from exception. Okay. Time up. So I'm in a hurry. That's why. Next, I have to define what? Constructors. How many? No param constructor and string param constructor. String message. Now this message I should pass to whom now? Super class. Then here I should write super of message. Then this message given to throwable class or exception class? Exception class. Exception class constructor will go to throwable class. Here do I need to write super no argon? Not required. Compile write. You want to support exception chaining? No. Okay, then go to example class. Here, if a value 0, then I want to throw this exception. I'm writing one more condition. If a value greater than 0 and a value less than 10. 0 to 9, I don't want. Again, 0 to 9, I don't want. 10 onwards, I want to take. Then what I should do? Throw new. Which exception now? Number range exception of what error message? Don't pass number in between 0 to 9. 0 to 9, na? 10 allowed. I written what? Less than 10. Okay, 0 to 9, don't pass. Save it. Program compile or not compile? Answer. Program compile or not compile? Not compiled here. Number range exception is what type of exception? Ayyo. What type of exception? Checked exception, Rabaya. Checked exception must handle, na? My dear Gajini. Understand why the exception must be checked exception? You forgot to handle. Compiler will call nearer and slap. Tumri fellow, you create your exception as a checked exception, you are not handling. Now tell me, do you understand now the purpose of checked exception? You forgot to handle. Compiler warn you. How to handle? Comma. Now program compiler? Yes. Tell me, now this program executed? This program compiler, not compiled? Not compiled. Why? Now M1 method throwing one more checked exception, negative number exception. Control 1. Compile. Compiler throwing error. Number range exception we didn't handle, throwing error. Then what to do? I must catch that exception. Catch off. Simple topic here, Babu. Into confused number range exception. Control 1. Compile. Control 2. Now I'm giving what? -10. Which exception raised? Negative number exception. Negative number catch block executed. E dot print. So I'll do one thing to show you that. I will take E dot print stack list. Which exception rise I want you see. Control 1 compile. Control 2 now -10. Negative number exception. Don't pass negative number. Next now control 2. I am giving what you call 5. Now 5 is a positive number. We got number range exception. Don't pass number in between 0 to 9. So hope you understand. I don't want this much message. Okay, only I want what? Class name and error message. Then what, right? System.out.println E. Control 1, control 2, -10. Negative number exception. Don't pass negative number. Now control 2, 5 I am giving. Number range exception. Don't pass number in between 0 to 9. I don't want exception class name. Only I want error message. What do you write now? E dot get message. -10. Error. Don't pass negative number. 5. Don't pass number in between 0 to 9. Now I am passing value 10. Exception or output? Output. Number 10 is stored. Hope you all understand now. So how to handle how to create multiple custom exceptions, how to throw the exception and report, and how to catch and display. Okay, complete story you understood. Clear? Any doubts? With this we completed exception handling with the project. Okay, now there is one small question in Java 7 version. Sun Microsystem asked by themselves. First catch block, second catch block, both have same logic, no? Different logic or same logic? When I want to do changes, I am doing the same changes in both the constructors. When you are writing same logic in both the constructors, why you are writing 2 times? Is it a code redundancy or not? That's why Sun Microsystem has introduced Java 7 new feature. Catch of which exception you want to handle? Catch block can catch 2 exceptions at a time. 2 exceptions if you want to catch at a time. 2 exceptions to come from try block, na? Tell me, how many exceptions at a time from try block will come? Only one. Either that or this. Below that or this. Hey. That or this or what operator? Or. I must use operator or, and then number range exception. What do you call? E. So catch of negative number exception or number range exception. What are the new syntax we have? Or, not comma. If I write comma, they become what? 2 parameters. From the try block, are we getting 2 exceptions at a time? Only 1 exception. Which exception? Maybe negative number exception or number range exception. Only 1 exception coming. That exception store in the E. And what logic you want, right? For both exceptions, I want write same logic. Do you understand that? So this is which version feature? Java 7. What the name of the Java 7 new feature? Catch with multiple exceptions. What? Catch with multiple exceptions is the feature. So tell me, what are the rules we must follow while working with this feature? How many parameter names I must write? Come on. How many parameter names? Parameter name ante negative number exception or ENA? How many parameter names I should write? Only 1 here. Why you are thinking how many I have written here? Only 1. If I write here E1 or here I write E2, that means how many exceptions you are getting at a time? 2. That's wrong. How many exceptions you are getting? Only 1. Then how many parameter names? 1 parameter. How to separate 1 exception with another exception? R. Earlier we are separating with comma. but now you have to use what? Or. Because this catch block doesn't take both exceptions at a time. Either first exception or second exception will come. Clear my point? Now, another rule. First rule number is what? One parameter. Rule number 2, or is the separator. Rule number 3. Observe. If I write here exception or number range exception, how many exceptions you are handling now? 2. Either exception type exception or number range exception. Then tell me, if I write exception here, this number range exception also catching by this exception only, na? Then why you are writing this parameter waste? Yes or no? Multiple catches exception rule. Remember, compiler will throw error. What? Reached the end of file while parsing. Control 1. Look at that. Alternatives in the multi-catch statement cannot be related to subclassing. That means either you write left side or right side, anywhere you write, it will keep on throwing error. So for example, I'm taking now number negative number exception here and exception 2 here. Then you will get compile time error. Alternative in multi-catches cannot be subclassing. So super subclasses cannot be used. You must take only what? Siblings. So totally how many rules while working with multi-catches? 3 rules. Number 1, the separator should be R. Rule number 2, the only one parameter name. Rule number 3, the exception classes must be siblings, should not be superclass, subclass. So hope you all understand this project. Okay, will you practice it? I want you to try one more example by your own. I taken one dummy example, negative number and number range example I taken. I want you to try one more example by your own. Clear? Right. I'm uploading these points to our Google Classroom. You can download from there. Hello. The same project is there in your material also. In material, I have developed bank application. Can you try? Try to understand by your own. Okay. Complete application, complete end to end. I have developed bank application in the material. Yesterday, where we saw the page number, I don't remember. Okay, that page number. Next, you have custom exception and whatever explanation I gave today, complete 3 points are there, and also bank project is there. Okay, try to practice that bank project today. Now, this project not there in the material, so I am uploading. Online students, do you all understand? Okay, so that's all about exception handling chapter, and more 10 to 15 minutes discussion is there called what do you call, try with resources topic. Shall we have class tomorrow for 1 hour? Okay, na? Tomorrow I want to take class morning only. Is it okay? Online class, not offline. 7 a.m. Is it okay to you? 7 to 8 we will complete class. Understand? 7 to 8, 8:30 we will complete class, and then you can enjoy with your revision later. So tomorrow class, I'll take class at 7 a.m. online, and we'll complete the pending topic, exception, handling Java 7 new feature, try with resource. I completed one feature now, that is, what do you call, try with multi-catch exception. Try with resource, it will take minimum 40-45 minutes. Okay, na? So I don't want to teach the topic like in Amirpet, just what is try resource, how to write. No, it has 10 rules are there. Multi-catch exception only 3 rules, but try with resource has totally 10 rules are there. All 10 rules I want to teach, and also I want to compare try catch with if else. Try catch with if else, try catch with what do you call? It takes 1 I required to complete remaining. So if I complete by this Sunday, Monday onwards we can start. Here. So tomorrow let's have class at 7 a.m. Will you wake up by 7 a.m.? Yes, sir. Wake up. Otherwise you will suffer. Thank you. Good night. That's all for today class. Online students, any questions?